Tuesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Glue FM for Minding Your Business with me, attorney Rishma Eckert, to discuss the law and your business. Email us with your questions at info@mybshow.com. And remember, success comes from minding your business.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Minding Your Business. Thanks to our streaming partners, Full Force Radio in Kentucky, SuccessRadio.ca in Canada, the English Connection Media in UK, and Energy Radio 1 in New York, and all our partners in Jamaica, Asia, Africa. Thank you guys so much for having us on your platforms. For our episodes of Minding Your Business and more inspiring and fun videos, check out Glue FM TV on YouTube. And while you're there, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the video so other people can be educated as well. Text your questions live to 862-215-3979. Send your inquiries to info@mybshow.com. Rishma, what are we talking about today?
Hi, welcome to another episode of Minding Your Business. Today we are talking about drafting your online terms and conditions. Now, before we get to that, I'd like to introduce myself. This is Rishma Eckert from Eckert Law PLLC. Just a couple of reminders that I do almost every show because I want you to be able to take the benefit of everything that's out there. The PPP program is still available. That is to the SBA.gov website. PPP stands for Paycheck Protection Program, and it is a program by the government to help you with your small business if you took a loss during the pandemic. So make sure you check that out if you need assistance. Also, there is the EIDL loan that you can get through the SBA. Both of those loans are available on the SBA.gov website. Make sure that you go and try to get assistance for your business. We also have the MYB Small Business Spotlight. If you would like for your company to be highlighted on our show and spotlighted on our show, please make sure that you email info@mybshow.com and we'll be able to connect, discuss, and pick a time where we can highlight your business. Again, the idea for the show is that we want to make sure that those companies that took a hit during the pandemic have an avenue to highlight their businesses so we can help you. We are in Florida, New York, Canada, UK, Africa, Jamaica. The program is everywhere. So if you would like to be a part of that and you would like to highlight your business, email us at info@mybshow.com. We also ask the listeners to email us to let us know if there's a topic that you would like for me to cover. I've done that in one of my previous episodes with Ask MYB. I usually try to cover as many topics as I can that I think are affecting small business owners. But the last listener asked me specifically about side hustles and licenses, and I was like, great, that's a topic I haven't discussed before. Let me go ahead and put a show together. So if there is something that you would like for me to discuss, please go ahead and do so. Email us at info@mybshow.com. Also, if there's a topic that I have covered and you think, wow, I really want you to do that again, I would like for you to maybe elaborate on something that was done before, go ahead and let us know, because we're here to make sure that you get the benefit of the educational part of law and business.
Right.
I also want to say that this Thursday, I will be participating in an Entrepreneurs Beyond Borders panel discussion with a focus on Belize. And if you would, it's open to the public. If you would like to register, you can do so at Eventbrite. It is free. It's going to be fantastic. It's hosted by one of my clients and friends, Priscilla Dames from Wingspan Seminars. She's a guest of the show as well, and a friend of the show as well. So she's putting on this Entrepreneurs Beyond Borders event that includes members of chambers from Belize, the US, notably Miami. And we're just going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, specifically with women entrepreneurs, because we are still in Women's History Month, and with a focus on Belize, because I'm representing the Belize American Chamber, and then we have representatives from the local chambers in Belize as well, and there's representatives from the government of Belize there as well, from the Women's Department in Belize. So it should be really interesting. Again, no charge. Sign up, participate. It will be very informative. And I'm very proud and honored to be asked to be a speaker at that event. So, my quote of the week, and I love this one. It's from Bill Gates. For those of you who don't know who Bill Gates is, he's the founder of Microsoft. And he says, if your business is not on the internet, then your business will be out of business. And he says that not just because he's the founder of Microsoft, and it's one of the notably one of the biggest internet companies out there, or software companies out there. It's true. I mean, we're moving towards a more remote way of doing business, especially after the pandemic. I
Yes.
find that remote business is the best way to go because we can't meet face to face. And I always give the example to my clients who say, can I come to your office? And I tell them I haven't been to my office in about a year. And that's that's honestly the truth, because whereas I would have clients come in, we can discuss, we sign retainers face to face, we discuss things face to face. Last year has really changed everything.
Yes.
So we're able to do everything remotely. We're able to do there's DocuSign out there for signing documents. You always have Zoom and Skype and Teams, Microsoft Teams, and all the
Yeah.
things out there where you can connect and still be safe. So your business is definitely moving into internet space. And I got my inspiration to do this show because I had a client call and say, hey, you did my services agreement for my company. I want to also put that on my website. Can I just basically cut and paste the terms of the services agreement and put that as my terms and conditions online? Is that going to be okay? And I told them, no, no, it doesn't work the same if you have online. And what I mean by online, we're talking about websites, apps, e-commerce sites where you're buying things with shopping carts and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
There is a difference between what you put in your physical, like, client services agreement or sale of goods agreement. Some things will overlap, but it is different. You can't think that you're just going to cut and paste that agreement, put it into your website, and you're good to go, because there are elements of doing internet business that are very different from doing face-to-face business.
Right.
So that gave me the inspiration to do this show today, and I want to talk about drafting an online terms your online terms and conditions. Now, I have to say, big disclaimer, I'm not going to talk about every single thing that you need to put on your online terms and conditions. This is not everything. I'm broaching a couple of things. I believe it's 7 or 8 things that I'm going to just discuss what you will need and what you need to be specific about. But this is by no means an exhaustive list of everything that you need to include. You still have to be very industry specific. You still have to be very product specific and service specific towards what you want to convey to your users for your websites or apps or e-commerce or what have you. So this is just me being able to give you that big picture of food for thought of what you should put in that's different from what you would put in with your regular contract. So let's just jump into it. The point of having an online terms and conditions is that you want to make sure that that contract, because it's still a contract, that contract that your users are using, that it's enforceable. Because now you're not in the space where I'm signing, you're signing, we have this paper and we have this enforceable contract, and we can wave it around, take it to court or whatnot. You have someone who's on the internet that you're not interfacing with, but you want to make sure that what you have is still enforceable, so that if you get to a point of dispute or you get to a point of litigation, you can have something in black and white and you can show that it's enforceable. That's the whole point of trying to make sure that you have terms and conditions in your websites. It's not there just to annoy you, where you have to scroll, 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 and click all the time. It's not there just to annoy you. It's to make sure that you have certain parameters that you can still operate your business under, that's binding and that's enforceable. So again, the T's and C's, the terms and conditions, should be industry specific, product specific. They should be clear and concise language. I'll go through about 8 different topics, but this is just in the beginning. I want to make sure that you get a frame of what I'm talking about. The the term should be clear and concise language. Oftentimes, you see websites that are staying away from the really technical legalese language, and it's about like, welcome to, ABC company, we're here to help you, or whatever the case may be. You'll see that the online terms and conditions tend to be less legalese and more user friendly, more shorter sentences, for example, or you'll have more clear and concise language than you would in a regular
Mm-hmm.
traditional contract. Um, as an example, I had a client come to me with I incorporated his business and now he wanted his terms and conditions. And it took me so long to write his terms and conditions because it had to be in a language that I'm not familiar writing with. So I'm used to the very legalese, very technical, very formal way of writing contracts because I've done contract writing for about 11, 12 years. So I was used to writing a certain way. And now, like everyone else, I have to shift to the new way of doing business. And the online terms and conditions were very user friendly. It was like, hi there, welcome. We aim to please. And I just had to change my entire tone. And I did it for my client because he was in a type of very friendly, upbeat type of business. So it couldn't be something very dry or staunch. It had to
Right.
be very, very happy and user friendly. And man, it took me forever. The legal part was fine. It was just like the intro part and all that. That
Yeah.
I just had to kind of pull it out of me to be very, very user friendly on it. But that's what's needed for your terms and conditions.
That's
You want
good.
to make sure that you have positive language, concise language, user friendly language, and why? Because a lot of times, especially if you have a website or specifically an app, you're reading it on your phone, right? So you want to make sure that you can scroll through and that you can easily understand what's happening for when you click your I agree or whatever the case may be of how you accept. We'll get to that. Um, so user friendly, the ease of doing the T's and C's should be that it's not too complicated. So let's jump into what I consider what you would need for your terms and conditions. But again, this is not a complete list. This is just things that I pulled out that I want you to be aware of as our listeners to make sure that you incorporate that into your terms and conditions. The first thing, you have to have an assent to use the terms and conditions by your users, an assent, an acceptance. That is the main part of having an enforceable terms and conditions. The main part is having an agreement. You can't just have it there for show. You have to have it there where your user is consenting and agreeing and accepting to use those terms and conditions. It's very, very important for the enforceability of the contract that you're going to have within your online terms. So it has to be written in a way where the website is conditioned upon that user's acceptance, right? It has to be in a way that you will, if you took it to court or you had a dispute, you can show that that person assented and agreed to be bound by those terms and conditions. So, how do you achieve that in a lot of websites and apps? You'll have what's called a click wrap or a scroll wrap. So, the click wrap and the scroll wrap would be where and you have all the T's and C's, and you kind of have to like scroll and scroll and scroll. And before you can continue using the website, there's a little box that you have to click I agree.
Yes.
And that's specifically there because they want to make sure that you go through the T's and C's and that you agree before you continue to use the website. The person, you as a business owner, should want all your users of your online resources to agree to your terms and conditions before they continue using it. Otherwise, then there's no parameters or no, there's no conditions for use in your website, and that could create a huge problem, as we'll see when I cover some other points in terms of how you go ahead and do your business. So the click wrap and the scroll wrap is there to make sure that you place it there to make sure that someone agrees before they get into the meat of your website.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you'll see as soon as you click on a website, it pops up on the front, and then you kind of have to go through agree and then you continue to use it. Or sometimes you see it placed before you get to checkouts. Like if you have to buy something before you get to the checkout, you have to kind of go through and agree as well. It's really important that you have that assent by the user before you continue with your business. Let's see. Also, one of the ways that you can make sure, and I've seen a lot of cruise lines do this as well, is that when you put in your email address and you put in all your user information, one of the things that they will do is that they will email you a copy of the terms and conditions. I know a couple of cruise lines that do that. When you are sent, you can either print it out or you can have it sent to your email. That way you have a copy of the contract that you signed. All of those are ways to make sure that it is a contract that you were sent to, and that you can show that contract in case there's a dispute, and it is enforceable that way. And I like that idea of being able to have those terms and conditions in your email,
Yeah.
because then if there is a dispute on either end, you can quickly go and do the reference of it when you find it in your email. So assent by the user, acceptance by the user is really, really important. If you're a business owner, you want to have that for the enforceability of your contract. The second thing you want to have is you want to have a description, detailed description of the goods and services that you're providing. Now, why is that? Again, enforceability of the contract. If the user thinks that they're buying one thing and they get something else, then you don't have what we call in law as a meeting of the minds. The you don't have two parties who are agreeing to something. So if I think I'm buying one thing and it comes with this accessory, that accessory, that accessory, that accessory, and when it comes with one thing, then you're like, wait a minute, why did I spend $50 to buy this when, I could have gone to the store and gotten it, at probably a lot cheaper. You want to make sure that you specifically put for every product what it is that that person is getting. It
I
really, really is. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm glad you say that because I was scrolling through social media platform a couple months ago and I saw a story of a guy who was selling a PS5 picture. It wasn't the actual console. He was selling a picture of a PS5.
Wow.
And yeah, and he sold like six of them for like 430 something dollars. And
Mm-hmm.
people, when they got the package, they're like, well, you, and then they went back to Amazon and read the terms and condition and the description of the package and everything, and they realized that they bought a picture of a
Picture.
PS5 for almost 400 almost $500. So yeah, that was I thought of that story when you
Wow.
mentioned that. Yeah.
I didn't read about that, but what a little scam artist, whoever is doing that. Come on now.
Yeah, cuz you
You
know
know
when
that you're doing it to trick people.
at that
Like that's
time
crazy.
PS5 was like everybody
It
wanted a
still is.
PS5. Yeah.
It still is.
Yeah.
That's why it's very, very important as you as the business owner, because we're trying to look at it from the business owner point of view. Don't be a scam artist. First of all, that's really mean. Don't do that to people. Second of all, you want to make sure that if that person really is selling a picture of, I mean, that had to be like the biggest, boldest, italicized description
He
so that people
did.
understand.
He did
He
put
did,
it.
and
He
people
put it
still.
in the description. He said, "Warning." There's a caution sign. It says,
Oh, there's a
"Warning.
warning
This is
too.
a
Oh wow!
picture of a PS5, not an actual PS5." He
Oh
put it,
no,
and
then
people
I guess that's
overlooked
the
all of that and bought a picture of a
I guess that's
PS5.
the buyer's beware then. That's on the consumers that they should have read that.
And
I
people were
mean, because
upset at him, and I'm like, no, you can't be upset at him. I mean, yes, it was wrong for him to do that, but he
yeah,
warned
but at the
all of
same
us.
time, exactly at the same time,
Yeah.
if you are reading, like for me, I mean, I guess not everyone is as detailed, but I read everything that I'm going to buy online. I mean, I go to the reviews, I go to the
Yes,
product description, I make sure that I know what I'm getting,
that's
especially when
me.
I'm buying stuff for my kids. It's like I need to read everything. And my husband goes, "Oh my gosh, just buy it already." And I go, "No, I need to see what it is that I'm getting because I do, I guess we all do a lot of shopping online these days.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you have to make sure that you have the description. We're talking about are something as simple as are batteries included or not? Are you buying a play set that has the figurines or do they don't have the figurines? Because a lot of times you go through the pictures and they show like kids. I'm talking about kids products because that's usually what I buy. But you'll see like the play sets and you'll see the little figurines with it because they're showing you how you can play with it. But you
Right.
got to read the description to see if those figurines actually come with the play set. Something like if you're buying goods that are not new, then you have a lot of sites that have popped up where you can sell your goods from your own home and whatnot.
Yeah.
You want to put the condition of the goods. Are they in good use? Are they in fair use? Are they brand new? Are they, gently used, a lot of use, whatever the case may be? You want to make sure that you have something that's fair. Why do I make so much emphasis on this? Because that is a way to nullify a contract, is to say there was no meeting of the minds, right? We didn't agree. And we want to make sure that you as a business owner should want to make sure that your users know exactly what it is that you're selling, so that they can't come back and say, look, this is not what I wanted and I want my money back, or you scammed me, or whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that that product description is completely detailed. And after this, I'm gonna go Google that PS5 story, because that's really
Yeah.
interesting, really really interesting. Another thing that you want to include with your description of your goods and services, or that you want to include in your website, and I just put it under description of goods and services, is that you want to put in any preconditions or restrictions for use on your website. Meaning, is this a website where you have to be over 18 to get into? Is there like a location requirement? Like, I'll ship to you, free shipping, but only within, 100 miles of location, or whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that you put in your prerequisites. You want to make sure that you put in your any age restrictions, any sort of restriction that you have on that product or service. You want to make sure that you put in the website. Why? Again, someone orders and they say, hey, it's free shipping. Why are you charging me $19.99 for shipping? You have to be able to show them, well, you agreed that shipping was only going to be up to a certain mile marker. So those are the types of things that you want to, as a business owner, try to minimize the amount of conflicts and that you have with your
Mm-hmm.
users. You want to make sure that you have business that's just rolling and moving, and there's not many hiccups along the way. And if there is complaints, or if there is people questioning you, that you have your contract that you can very well print out or point to and say, look, in my policy it says this is the shipping radius that I have, or the age requirement, or whatever the case may be. You want to make sure you be as detailed as possible when you put those things in. I mean, it's not something that we readily think of, but as a business owner, you want to make sure that you hit all these points, so that you don't spend your days just literally mitigating complaints from someone. You don't want to do that. You want to focus on being able to sell your product.
Okay, so
Really, really
this
important.
story about the PS5 picture is actually eBay, not Amazon. So I wanted to clarify that it was actually eBay, not Amazon. But yeah,
Okay, got
yeah.
it. I'm still gonna look it up because I think it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that you said that there's a warning and everything, and people paid close to five hundred
And the
dollars
no
for a picture.
refund. He put it up there too. No
No
refund.
refund policy. Wow,
Yes. Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. So interesting. So for our users out there, because everyone's a business owner, and you're probably a user as well of websites and apps. Read, just read what it is that you're buying
That's it.
before you buy it. Just make sure that it's tedious and whatnot, but it can cost you, literally can cost you in the long run. So very very interesting that you say that, because my third point I was going to do is describe your payment terms. Payment is also very 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 important. It is probably the crux of any e-commerce site. Is your payment terms. Why is this so important? Because you want your user to understand, your end user to understand how money is being moved. You want them to understand the transaction. You want them to understand how it's being handled. So you would put in your T's and C's, how the money is collected, how it's handled. You'll clearly state your prices, and prices for any additional sources, or any additional expenses. So, if example, you'll see the e-commerce sites that calculate, this is the price of the product, this is what your shipping and handling is, this is what your taxes are, and this is your total. That is the way to go before someone buys something, that they can clearly see a breakdown of what it is that they're buying. Because I'll tell you, again, going back to my online shopping that I do a lot, there are a lot of times where I go to the very end where the payment terms are, and I see how much it costs to just ship the product, and I go, oh, no way. The shipping is almost as much as the actual product,
That's true.
and I don't want it anymore, and then I don't buy it. So it's really, really important. I think I'm getting a deal, and I do bargain hunt a lot, for especially for my kids who break things in like 5 minutes. Um, I go and I find this thing and I think, oh, this is a great deal. And then I look at the shipping terms and I go, wow, this is like $20 to ship to me. Like, no, to me, that's a lot for a toy. I'm not doing it. I'd rather go down to the traditional stores and just buy it. So it's like you want to make sure that you have that breakdown. And of course, the taxes, if you're paying sales taxes, how much the taxes are going to be as well. Very, very important. If you're taking, and most online e-commerce sites will take credit cards and debit cards, right? Not everyone does ACH checks and stuff like that, but credit cards and debit cards. If you're doing that, you have to have authorization language within your e-commerce setup, meaning that you're authorizing either that company or whoever is doing your third party processing to be able to take this money from your account. It has to be done. You have to have some sort of wording that addresses your credit card authorization. And also, when you're doing credit card authorizations and you have all your client information, what you have to have in your website, you have to have a privacy policy for your users. Privacy policies are sometimes they're with the T's and C's, sometimes it's completely different in a different tab or a different link or what have you, but you have to clearly explain to your users how their information is protected.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
have to let them know what's going to happen with that information. Is it going to be destroyed afterwards? Especially for those sites where you can sort of keep a file or a credit card on file in case you people who do a lot of buying from the sites, they can keep one on
Mm-hmm.
file. You want to make sure that you as a business owner, that you have a privacy policy where users feel safe, that they're not going to have their credit card information and date of birth and everything out there. You have to make sure that your users know how their privacy is kept. Because I'm telling you this, if someone hacks in or someone takes that information, you're on the hook. You are on the hook. And if you abide by your privacy policy and someone does hack and someone does end up having your end user's information, then at some level you're protected because you did what it is that you said you were going to do in a reasonable manner to keep everyone's information safe. And it was just one of those things, right? Hackers
Right.
get in everywhere, they even get into the banks. So some things
Yeah.
cannot be something, not everything is under your control. But I'm telling you, if you have someone breaking in and you don't have a privacy policy where you have followed everything within your privacy policy, you're gonna get sued, and they're gonna win, and it's gonna be a problem for your company. So make sure that you have a very, very good privacy policy set out. Now I'm talking about e-commerce sites where you have just a credit card authorization and you're buying goods and services. And there's even more of a scrutiny with privacy policies when you're doing healthcare, because you have HIPAA, you have like a lot of different other laws depending on what industry you're in. So, like I said in the beginning, this is very, 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 very industry specific, and you would want to make sure that you address your specific industry when you go through your terms and conditions. But policy, credit card authorization language, very, very important for your payment terms. Description of the shipping and delivery. You see this everywhere. And because it's very, very important that people know a couple of things about your products. So you should also have a shipping policy. So now we have authorization, shipping policy. What did I say just now? Privacy
Privacy.
policy.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that you would have to work on that are aside from if you have a traditional contract with your clients. This is now just the website, online terms and conditions that you have to think about. So for a shipping policy, you should absolutely think about, for example, where you ship your products from, right? It's very, very important. If I'm going online, and these days you never know where the origination of the product is, you just never know. But if you click on something and it tells you, like, this product is coming from somewhere in China, then you get to make a decision if you want to have that product or not. Sometimes you want, sometimes you don't want to. Some people only want to buy American, which is fine. You have a right to know as the end user where that product is coming from. The product could be coming from Belize or Jamaica or wherever. It just really depends. But you should let your client and your users know where that product will be coming from so that they can make a decision if they want to continue with the product. You should let them know what their expected time frame for delivery is. If is it Are we talking about 5 business days, or are we talking about a month? That makes a huge difference too in terms of whether or not clients will want to engage with you.
Would that
So expected time frames for the shipment. Go ahead.
would the company, are the user be able to sue a company if they paid for shipping in 3 days and after a week they still haven't gotten the product? That's a liable for a lawsuit. Is that something that's
Well,
possible?
maybe not immediately a lawsuit, but definitely a complaint, a legitimate complaint, if you don't
Okay.
get it in the time that you're supposed to be getting it. And then also, you have to remember that some of these companies, and I think I have it here. Yeah. Some of these companies use third party shipping companies, right? So
Okay.
sometimes it's not always you. You use UPS, or you use FedEx, or you use USPS, whatever the case may be. It
Okay.
is a third party shipping company. So that's not to say that your company is excused from any sort of liability because you use a third party, but it's good for your user to know whether or not it's you or a third party that you're going to use. Um, I will get down to the like complaints and stuff like that later because I
Oh,
have that as my next point.
okay.
And also with your shipping policy, you should let them know if how long they have to wait for that product or service. So we're talking services. Let's say you book something online. You can have that person come out to you, within the next day or two, or are we talking about 2 weeks that we're waiting? The point is to make it very specific for the user so that they're not expecting one thing and you're delivering something else, right? So if someone does call and complain and say, hey, I ordered this service online and no one's here yet, you can point to your policy, your delivery or shipping policy, or just your policies and say, look, we told you service was going to be within the next week and it's only been a day. So you have to wait. Oh, okay. And as long as you show your customers that they have agreed to this thing, a lot of them will, I mean, in my experience is that a lot of them are like, oh, okay, well, I just didn't see it there, but I guess I agreed to it. There's very few people I've found that have continued to argue, well, I want that service right now, even though they agreed to it before. So, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen because I'm sure it does, but it's good for you as a business owner to be able to show in black and white what that person has agreed to. That way, it leads to less animosity, less uncertainty, and then you, as a business owner, can streamline your business. So you can deploy people as you need them to, and you have a better flow of your business. So, for example, I would say if I tell someone my turnaround time is a week, what I usually do is my turnaround time is usually a week to do whatever project. I will have it in my calendar the day that that person pays for the project, and I'll have in my calendar the day that the deadline is due. So, like most businesses will have a way of tracking, their deployments and making sure that they get within that timeline. That timeline is there because that's probably how they do business. Now, if you want it before, I see a lot of companies have expedited too, right? So you pay a lot more if you need it within less time, and they have procedures for that too. So if you are
Yes.
that in that sort of business, make sure that you can calculate it in a way that you're not giving unrealistic expectations, but you are actually being able to fulfill what the user needs. Um, you should also have in your shipping policy the third parties that I mentioned, and what happens if the delivery is delayed. What happens if the delivery is delayed? What happens if you don't get your order within that timeline? Now, what usually happens is that there is a contact information or tracking information. A lot of the third parties will have tracking information that you can go and see. Well, if not today, when do I get it? Oh, I get it tomorrow. Maybe that's not going to be an issue. Um, and I say maybe because sometimes when you order stuff, it's for a specific event, and having it the day after the event doesn't help you.
No.
But you would have contact information in your shipping policy if something is not going the way that it's supposed to, that you can contact whoever the person is in charge of that department within your company, and they can sort of advocate for you. So all of that should be in your shipping policy so that your end users know exactly what they're getting. Again, this is making sure that what you're promising is what they're getting so that there's no misunderstanding with the expectations that are happening. So, number 5, I have here returns, refunds, and complaints. Very, very, very big as well. I want to make sure that the listeners out there who are business owners know that they should have some sort of returns or refund policy. If it's something like you mentioned with the PS5, non refundable, that's
Yes.
basically the policy that is completely non refundable, then that's a policy in itself. But a lot of companies will sort of have at least a few things listed for their returns policy. Like you would have, for example, let's see, you would have, for example, if how can you return a product? Like, what are the parameters for returning it? Is it damaged? Is it not what you thought it was going to be? Like, I ordered a red whatever and I ended up with a green whatever, and that's not what I want. So let me go ahead and return it. A lot of times you will have that sort of return policy of tell us where we went wrong or what the damage was and whatnot. Um, if you didn't get the right size of product, if you expected a pillow this big and you got a pillow this big and now you can't use it, whatever the case may be, a lot of times there is a return refund policy that you would have to fulfill. A lot of the policies also mentioned, for example, you have to show a specific proof of purchase, and I've seen where there's clothing where you can't take the tags off. As long as you take the tag off, that means that you can't return them and get your money back. So a lot of those are within the company's refund and return policy. You want to make sure that you can show proof of purchase and that you haven't done anything that sort of hampers your ability to get your refund if that's the case. You want to include also in your refund and return policy who pays for the postage, who's going to pay for it, right? So if you have a huge product that you got and you're like, wait a minute, this is damaged, you want to make sure that you can see within your refund policy or return policy who pays for that. Does the company pay for that? Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do. They pay for it. But what if they say no? We're not paying for that thing that's going to cost you $50 to send back to the company, right? So you want to make sure as a business owner that you're very clear and fair about what your returns and your refund policy is going to be. You want to definitely have some sort of um, deadline or turnaround time for the refunds as well.
Yeah.
So if someone follows all the procedures and they show you proof of purchase, they showed you where it was damaged, they're going to return it to you. You want to make sure that it's in black and white and your T's and C's and in your returns and refund policy where that person, when do you get your money back? How do you get it back? Will they credit your card? Will they, send you a check? What is the procedure? You want to make sure that you're clear on that too, so that, and again, this is to protect the business owners, that you can have terms that you are reasonably able to fulfill. If someone says, I want you to give me cash money in my returns, and you go, nope, we don't have that in our policy, it's either credit to your card or a check, then they have no way to complain to you because they've already agreed to that policy. That's
Yeah.
within your terms and conditions.
It's
And go ahead, Lisa.
and that's a good point too, because I purchased something and it was coming all the way from Canada, and the refund and return policy said that you can only refund up to 2 weeks after
Mm-hmm.
the purchase date.
After purchase.
Right, but
Mm-hmm.
when I sent it back to Canada, I guess it took almost a week to get there. Not sure why, but it took almost a week to get there. So we were going back and forth about the 2 weeks period, and I said, well, if you look at the date that the item was sent, it was within that 2 weeks period, but because they got
Mm-hmm.
it beyond that date, he wanted to make a big deal. But anyways, the long story short, I got my money back. So it's very important for companies to be clear on that, because the 2 weeks, the date that actually sent fell within
Was
those two
within.
weeks, but it took a long time to get there. So he wants to put that on me, but thank goodness I got my money back. Yeah.
Right. And then 2 points to that. It's very important is that remember it, well, you probably don't, but remember when we were talking about origination dates for when we're talking about invoicing origination date versus when you've received it. And it
Yes.
was such a little nitpicky thing. And, I think it's super important, but people are probably thinking, well, it's not that big of a deal. It is a big of a deal because it goes towards you, what you were saying now. It is a really important point to know that if you're saying 2 weeks from if from purchase is different from 2 weeks from the date of shipping, right? So like those are really, really important. And the first thing is as a company, you want to make sure that you're very specific within your policy. The second thing is, and I'm glad that you were able to get your refund. The second thing is that you still have the option of doing the fair thing, right? So just because something is in your policy and you may want to follow it, it doesn't mean that if something is reasonable that comes up that you didn't contemplate, and maybe hopefully they fix their policy after the incident with you,
Right.
at least reword it or add a few words in it to make sure that it's more reflective of what they're saying. It doesn't mean that you still can't go ahead and do the right customer service thing. Not everything is going to be black and white. I like for everything to be black and white, but I also like for everything to be fair. So if you as a business owner get yourself in a situation like that, yeah, the best thing to do is to do the fair thing and issue the refund. Now, if someone is trying to get a refund and you know that something's up and you get that red flag about, wait a minute, this is not legit, then you can go through your policy and you can say, no, we have to deny you for whatever reason. But it's all there to make sure that you protect yourself as a business, but at the same time you can be fair. And I like that example because it's an example of a company that was like, okay, we understand our policy says this. It can be interpreted two different ways, but we're going to err on the side of being fair to you. And I
Right.
like that. I'm glad that they did that. Yeah, turnaround time for refunds. I'm glad I put it in there because I'm hoping that our listeners out there can hear this and be like, wow, there's just so much I need to add to my online terms and conditions
Yeah.
that I want to make sure that I go through and really logistically look at what it is that you're selling and go in and fill in those little blanks because every business owner I know is also a consumer or an end user of something. So you go in and you use your own experiences to put things together. When I write for my clients, I put myself in the position of what if I was my client's client? What if I was that customer? What are the things that I would want to know? And because I know about my client's business, I fill in the information. But it's really, really important to know like what are your recourses? What is it that you're really selling? The details, all the things that we're talking about, and have these policies in place. We're going to talk about amendments as the last thing, but I want to make sure that people know that just because you have it in there doesn't mean you're locked in forever. There are amendments that you can make to your policies to make it clearer or to make it fairer or just to change it if you want to in the future. So
Yes.
I'm hoping for that company that they were able to make some sort of adjustment to make it clearer for the next person who comes in.
Yeah, I hope so.
Under my returns, refunds, and complaints, complaints procedure, complaints. Oh my goodness, complaints. So if there is something that you would like to share with the company, I'm pretty sure most companies have an email address or a person an address that you can physically write to where you can render your suggestion about what you would like to change with the company, or if maybe you didn't have a good experience with a customer service rep or whatever the case may be, you should have some sort of complaints procedure within your company. It shouldn't be a free for all. It shouldn't be the Wild Wild West. It should be something very streamlined where you call this person, you levy your complaint, or you email and you levy your complaint. And you should ask, as the business owner, when someone is filing a complaint, you should ask for all the information to be included. What happened? What you were you expecting? What the issue is? Just make sure you have everyone's information so that you can follow up. because your idea and your point as a business owner should be to minimize your customer complaints, and your idea should be to have a business where it's streamlined to a point where you don't have all these complaints. And if, for example, let's say the shipping issue came up with you, Lisa, and it came up with like 50 other people, and
Mm-hmm.
you see the complaints from 50 other people, you would think as a business owner, okay, this is something that I definitely need to change. It's feedback from your customers. Hopefully you take it as a constructive way to be able to improve your business. So have a streamlined way of complaints where they can contact you, one, where you can get all the information you need. So whatever metric you use to get that information, whether it's someone on the phone, whether it's a form that they have to fill out, make sure you get all the information. And more importantly, give them time frames for responses. Time frames. So a lot of times you'll email and you'll get some automatic message that will say someone will get back to you in 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, and I found this to be the case, I never hear back anything. I never hear from anyone. You don't get a call back, you don't get an email back, you don't get a response. And it just, if you have a complaint for a company and then they ignore the complaint that you make, it just makes you more frustrated. So
Yeah.
you want to make sure as a business owner that you have some sort of procedure that you take to be able to address concerns of your customers, because at the end of the day, you depend on them to continue running your business. You want to make sure that you have that there. And then also, and I don't have it in my notes, but I want to add the power of the customer. I mean, the fact that you can write online reviews now, that you have Yelp, you have Google reviews, it just takes a
Mm-hmm.
couple of people to say, this is the most unprofessional company, because everyone's a gangster behind their keyboard these days. That they will write,
Yeah.
this was the most unprofessional company. I wrote them and I complained about my return policy for my shipping, and I never heard back from them, or whatever the case may be. And then people like me who read all the reviews before they buy something, are going to see that and be like, man, do I really want to buy from an unprofessional company?
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's a product or a service. Complaints aren't just there because you want the feedback and you want to improve your company, but you want to have a show of good faith that you care about what your customers are saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you that it's been such an explosion now with these online reviews. I even do that now when back in the day when I used to apply for jobs, all these websites will have reviews of the company from the employees, and that's one of the things that I always read before I even tried to submit my resume. I mean, that's just the power of having these online users, is that you go and, like, there's a couple of jobs that I didn't even apply for because the reviews were really terrible. And I wouldn't even submit my resume because I think, oh my goodness, how can all these people be wrong? Um, so it's just, as a business owner, for our business owners out there who have online services or have a website, an app, or e-commerce, just don't completely ignore the complaints that come in,
Right.
because that adds to the frustration, and it may hurt you in a way that you can't even see. So just
Okay.
have something in there. A lot of times, and I've found this in my past experience of working in other law firms, is that sometimes customers just want to be heard. Even if you don't do anything to fix the situation, they just want to make sure that their voice is heard. And that's fine. It doesn't take anything away from you for listening to constructive criticism of your
Yes.
company.
And
So
mm-hmm.
have something in place where you are able to use that and turn it into something positive.
And
Even
some
though sometimes it might not come in the most positive way, you can
yeah.
still turn it into something positive.
And sometimes just being very apologetic helps.
Sometimes being apologetic, especially where, if you have, for example, a third party that's responsible for either, let's say, the credit card processing, or the shipping or delivery or whatever, sometimes they'll understand, like, look, we've entrusted with this third party. The third party will follow up on your behalf. I mean, there's nothing better than a company that says, okay, I get your complaint, let me check it out for you, let me fix it for you, let me follow up on your behalf on these third party companies. So it's just being heard, And like you said, a lot of end users want to feel advocated for.
Yes.
Just don't ignore it, is what I'm saying, because it doesn't help you to ignore and not have a complaints policy that's streamlined where people know where they can go. The worst thing is, and these are some companies that I've never had, I'm not a second user to them, is when something doesn't happen and then I can't find anywhere on their website where I can actually call anyone or do anything. Some of them don't include it, and I think it's purposeful. But I'm saying for our listeners out there, don't be that company, because even if you might order it from once, someone you don't want to not be a company. You don't want to be a company to not get second users, because that's how you're gonna make your money, right?
Right.
So I've had a couple of companies where I've wanted to levy complaints and there's not a number, there's not an email. They're like, nope, we don't even want to hear it.
That's terrible.
And you just don't want to be that. Um, just
Rish,
quickly, oh gosh, I always end up,
Rishma, in general, right?
yes.
How
Hmm.
many people have to have the same complaints for a class action lawsuit to be filed?
Yeah, that's a good question. Class actions, there's not a general amount.
Oh,
It
okay.
just has to be more than two.
Oh, okay.
I believe, I mean, I'm not a class action attorney and I put my caveat out there. Disclaimer, I don't do class action lawsuits, so I'm not sure. But it has to be enough where it becomes, it has to be enough. It has to be enough and enough damages where you can prove that everyone is experiencing the same sort of damage. That's what the
Okay.
class action is.
Okay.
It's affected multiple people in the same exact way.
Okay.
But how would so you're talking about class action lawsuit against the company? It can be for something like delivery. I mean, I wouldn't think that you would want to sue them for delivery, but if there's widespread fraud, for example, I believe that that would be more you would be more inclined to do that for like something like fraud than you missed my delivery date. That I don't think that you would want to do that. But maybe one of these days I'll get a class action lawsuit attorney and we can talk about that as an idea for one of our upcoming shows.
Cause sometimes I get mail from
Hmm.
wherever, and they say, "Oh, you're in. You we
You're
want
part
you
of a
to."
class action.
Yeah, and I'm like, when? I have no recollection of any of this stuff. And they have my name, my information up there, the date of service, and I'm like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. So that's
Yeah,
why I asked you that question.
yeah. So with those, I get those too. I get those too, and you can opt out of it. I mean, if you don't remember, it could just be one of those things where you did it and you just don't remember, or you engaged in that service and you don't remember, or it could just be where they were mistaken. But they do mail quite a few of those things out. I get one of those probably every year or so
Yeah.
for something. It could be like an insurance company, it could be for my car, it could be whatever. And you can opt out of it. I mean, you don't have to be a part of it. They
I
get
never
enough
I never
people.
do.
I I think they get enough people ticking yes and sending it back in where it doesn't matter if you decide not to,
Okay.
because you're not really, yeah, they don't really ask you for anything more. In my experience, they don't really ask you for anything more. It's just that if they get a settlement, they have to split it up with the people who are named in the lawsuit. So let's say there's
Oh,
200 people as a class action. Whatever judgment they get, they split it up and they send you a part of a settlement.
okay. I never respond
Yeah,
to those things anyway, so I don't know
you
how
don't
it
have
turned out.
to. It's an option to join if you wanted to. That's
Oh,
usually what it is.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking now, since it's almost 5, should I leave my last 3 for next week and then do a wrap up for my
Yeah,
online terms?
that's good. Before the next episode, we can kind of like recap and then cover the
Recap.
last three. That sounds great.
Yeah, because I have 3 more points I want to make for the online terms and conditions. And then next week we can do that and then sort of wrap up the rest of the weeks as well.
Okay. That sounds great.
Right. So, yeah, instead of me rushing through them, because I know that You guys have told
No,
me before about rushing through
yeah, don't wait.
at
You
the
know, in
end.
the Caribbean, we say haste make waste. So we don't,
Haste make waste.
yes, we don't do
So, well,
that.
let me just wrap these up so far then, since
Okay.
we're getting so super close to the end. Um, so next week, listeners, I'm going to conclude by talking about your need to put in a user conduct policy. We're going to talk about stating your intellectual property rights, and also what you do for future changes or amendments to your policies. Again, I want to say that this is not an all-inclusive list. I am just touching on the things that I think are important for you to have. Of course, you're going to have a lot more terms and conditions. I'm just picking on the things that I think are very, very important that you should consider. Um, we're going to address those three things next week, and then we're going to wrap up for the week. My bottom line is that when you're
Rishma,
putting together your,
before
yes,
you do your bottom line, can you just remind our listeners about the entrepreneurs beyond borders?
sure. So this Thursday at 5, Wingspan Seminars is having a Entrepreneurs Beyond Borders panel discussion that includes chambers from Belize, chambers from Miami, and other women who are involved in business. You can join, and it's free for the public by going to Eventbrite and um, registering on Eventbrite for Entrepreneurs Beyond Borders. What I could also do is I can send you guys and one of the invitations so the listeners can either call in or text or email info@mybshow.com, and we
Mm-hmm.
can sort of direct them where to go. It is open to the public. We'll be discussing women in business. Um, it's going to be empowering because it's all women panel. I'm a speaker on it, and we're just going to discuss ways to empower each other. And I absolutely can't wait. And it's a good friend of our show that's having it, so of course we want to make sure that we support.
Yes. Okay. Bottom
So,
line.
so yes,
Sorry.
my bottom line is that when you have your business and you have your regular service agreements and goods agreements, it is not enough to just cut and paste that and put it into your website or your apps or your e-commerce sites. You have to make sure you adapt your terms and conditions to a virtual world, basically, a remote world, a digital world, and make sure that you tailor the language to your business and tailor the language to what you want to reflect to your customers. So the bottom line is to make sure that you're very specific with your language, and it's very tailored to your business and very specific to your industry. And if you don't know how to do that, you make sure you put the time and effort into it, because success comes when you're minding your business.
That's right. Thank you so much,
The
Rishma.
content on Minding Your Business is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as specific legal advice. This show discusses general legal issues affecting business owners. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily that of the show. If you need assistance with your specific legal issue, please consult with a licensed attorney. Join us live every Tuesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Glue FM for Minding Your Business with me, attorney Rishma Eckert, to discuss the law and your business. Email us with your questions at info@mybshow.com. And remember, success